Hey everybody, coming at you at day 51. Today we started Introduction to NodeJS and Express.js. And this is a back-end language library, but it's still considered JavaScript, so we're still in the same ecosystem. And so far it's been a pretty good day. We're working on just setting up the Express server and making sure that we have an API endpoint for when a user requests a new data or something like that. So we're actually following most of the content on Training Kit, as you see here, and so it's been pretty easy because I went over it last night. So it's pretty much a reiteration of what I read, and the project that we did today, which is Express Mini, it's basically just setting up an API endpoint for a GET request. And for our project today, we actually were working on setting up another server again, so basically a more practice, which is fine by me. And we basically had different tasks. It's going to be a week-long project, so today was just the GET request. That was the MVP. One of the stretch goals was to implement a Create React app and also to pull data from this server that we're now creating and grabbing those posts, pulling that to our React app and rendering that out. So that was the stretch goal, and I've managed to finish all that. For me, it didn't take too long because I've played around with Node and Express and definitely React, so that was no problem at all. I'm going to actually try to get more goals here completed, even work on the content for tomorrow in the Training Kit so I can get a head start. And I'm just going through some of the code here and some of the clips here so that I can show you what we're doing. In this index.js file, we're just working through setting up importing the modules, setting up the server, establishing the API endpoints, and establishing the port listener so our React app can hit those listeners to get data. So this just some custom code. Some triple equal just to make it snazzy a little bit, and then I have the Create React app, so I imported Axios styled components and also just worked out hitting the right address for the Axios. I noticed that you have to actually put in the localhost 8000 or else that didn't work too well, and of course always use a .then and a .catch for your errors. I had a button that when you push it, it will actually render out the new updates, and then it's going to map over all those posts and then have a title and the contents of it. And there's something interesting also. I implemented global style, which is from styled components. It's basically like an index.css file, but this removes the need to have an index.css file. So basically, I have no CSS files whatsoever in my projects, and that's the way I like it because I like to keep everything compartmentalized and packaged in one place so I can easily access and change it if I need to. So that's it for today. And hey everyone, today's day 52, and we covered server-side routing, which is basically working on post, put, and delete. That was part of our homework today. What we learned in class was basically just how to write those functions and then how to return the proper results, including the HTTP codes like 200 for OK, or 404 not found, or 500 internal error, that sort of thing. And this is the syllabus that you see here. I watched through the videos and I read the HTTP primer as well as download Postman, all very necessary to pick up this really cool language, Node and Express. And this is kind of what you see working through the example that they had working with the hobbits. And I do have that implemented in my code, and it's pretty straightforward. The things that we went in class today were a little bit more detailed. It's because we were trying to return the proper response back to the user. And they already had like an SQLite server set up, and so you had to kind of learn to pick that up, how you request things and how the format comes back. So that was pretty much the syllabus, and then this is pretty much the Postman app that I was telling you about. You can do all kinds of requests, get, post, put, delete, and patch, and some other really cool things. but it's really useful, and it's a desktop client, and you can work with your local server. So if you're running a local server, you can run these calls so that you can get data back to manipulate and to see how it's coming back to ultimately your client. So this is what I was working on, and you can see me going through the different requests and trying to delete and trying to update and that sort of thing. And that's it for the most part. That's mostly what you'll see in backend. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to actually go update it in the React app that I made. So, because I was working so much on testing these cool things that I read from the document last night. So now I'm going to share with you the file that I worked on. Basically, I learned something called route chaining. So you start with a server.route, and then you can only hit one, and you can only hit one, I don't know what parameter it is, I don't know, API/post. But you can chain like .post, .get, and whatever else. But it has to specifically follow that route. Like, you can't just throw in, like, say, :id, because that's a different route. But the thing is, you can chain those together. So I have a .get here, a .delete, and a .put. So that's kind of what I did here. And the reason behind this is to reduce redundancy and reduce typos. And it looks a lot cleaner, and it's easier to follow. You can, like, find exactly where you were writing the code. And then it just had some old code that I kept just in case I wanted to refer to the future. That was not chaining all the methods together. And that's it for the most part today. Hey everyone, day 53 coming at you. This is about Express middleware. We covered the different types, why you would use it, and how to actually create one. So today's assignment was pretty much the same as yesterday, working with Node blog. That's the name of the repo. And it has a, you want to say, database of users and a database of posts. And then you have to do CRUD operations on both. So today was only, the assignment was strictly just users CRUD operation. But I also had enough time, and I jumped into the posts CRUD operations as well. Something new today was implementing middleware, a custom middleware where it'll capitalize all the letters in a person's name in the user when a user creates a new name. And then there were also some popular middleware modules that we talked about, like Morgan, Cores, and Helmet. I haven't used those before. We used Cores in an assignment earlier this week, but the other two are new to me, so I have to do some playing around with that. In terms of the project today, I don't have a front end to show you. I just have the code here, basically just learning how to set it up. And you can see there's a middleware section with the uppercaser function that I have. And then you just plug it right into the routes that you have, route handlers that you have. And I'm right here, you can see me use route chaining, that's server.route. And then with the .post, I have a uppercase middleware right there, right before the regular callback function that you always get, the homies, rec and res, you always see that. And then if you have different routes, you have to have another route chain, basically. So like you can see for users ID, there's get, put, and delete on that. So I had some extra time. I ran into the extra route that they had just to grab all the posts from one user. So that was something extra today. And then this is my preliminary code for route handlers for the posts. It's probably going to be different tomorrow because they're doing something special to check if there's a user or not before the post is made. But that's pretty much it for today. And I reuse code a lot from yesterday. I typed it out by hand so I can remember that muscle memory as well. But mostly the same logic, just had to tweak a couple things. And it was a good day overall. Hi everyone, today's day 54 and we covered deployment and good practices. We actually didn't cover deployment at all, but we talked about it. And it was more of good practices, how to use different patterns in our file structures and in our code. And order is important in Express, unfortunately, so you do have to put things where they belong. And we just pretty much learn how to separate out our routes to different files, just so it's cleaner and it's less jumbled, especially if you have a larger application. So you can see that in this video I kind of separated out my different routes, And then my index is basically just 9 lines once you take out all the comments and the spaces. Yeah, I counted. And this is my Middlewares file, and it has just that one uppercase middleware that I was writing. Post routes has all the different routes for the posts, and you can see that I use 2 databases to pull in to interact with the data. And I use router.route, and this is what I was talking about before with chaining. And then the express.router is a new thing that we learned today, and it's just basically lets us abstract out the different routes. And same thing with user routes here. In this one, we actually use the uppercase middleware, so I imported it at the top. And then it's the same for the most part, still use route chaining, and everything was pretty much the same. I don't have a front end, unfortunately. Again, I just don't feel like I need to build one, and I'm confident that I can do that in React. And in other news, I ran into a little bit of a hurdle today where I installed MacOSX Mojave last night, and when I was trying to run yarn install or yarn add today, it was giving me a some kind of character error. I'm trying to remember the message exactly, but it was like invalid character or something like that. So I read online that apparently it must have been something with the dashes or the numbers. And so I copied the folder out to my desktop, renamed it, and it ran just fine. And it's weird because I've never had this before on PC or any Mac, but I think it might be something with Mojave, so I might have to restructure all my files here. And that's pretty much it for today. Sprint challenge day, it's day 55, and we just finished our sprint today. It's about the same project we worked on earlier this week, and we're just pretty much repeating it. I was actually reusing some of my code from yesterday to actually do the project today, and I think the thing they were checking is just to make sure that you have your server set up correctly and having the correct error handlers. And then it's an added bonus if you're able to separate out the different routes and the middleware from the index, if you can do that. And then they also have kind of a built-in database that you're working with already, so you have to just pretty much access it, run the REST endpoints, CRUD operations, and we had to run for 2 different databases, one for projects and one for actions. And overall, it's the same as what we did yesterday, so nothing too much different here. I didn't have much time after running all the different error tests and everything. And here I'm just providing some of my code so that you can see what I did and how I separated it out. Feel free to pause it if you'd like, and just to see. And that's going to be the end of this week. We have a holiday on Monday, so we're actually taking extra material on today after our sprint challenge, and I'm have to get cracking on that maybe Sunday or Monday. I usually like to keep it close to class day so the material is still fresh in my head, but I'm probably going to review more material this weekend to get a jump start on it. And that's pretty much it. Have a great weekend, and hope you enjoyed this week 11, heading onwards to week 12, which is about data persistence. So going to be working with SQLite, so I'm really looking forward to that. Let's see how it goes.